The stars had never been kind to the weak. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Consortium ruled through fear and fire. 5 powerful species controlled everything they could see. They were not explorers or traders. They were conquerors. Every world they found became another piece of their empire. Every species they met became their servants. The Verlith were the worst of them. Giant insects that stood 9 feet tall, covered in natural armor, harder than steel. They moved together like one mind, thinking and fighting as a single force. When the Verlith came to Aplanet, nothing survived unless it surrendered. The Morvacs were different, but equally terrible. Cold-blooded reptiles who calculated every battle like a math problem. They never attacked without knowing they would win. Thethalkar were beings made of pure energy living inside crystal bodies. Their weapons turned matter into light. The Grimmith were massive amphibians who could tear through metal with their bare hands. The Solvani ruled the skies, bird-like creatures faster than anything in atmosphere. Together, these 5 species had crushed over 200 civilizations. The galaxy learned one simple rule under the consortium. The strong take everything. The weak give everything. Resistance meant death, not just for soldiers, but for entire planets. Worlds that fought back were burned until nothing lived. The consortium did not believe in second chances. Captain Taman had never heard of the consortium. No human had. Humanity had just invented faster than light travel 3 months ago. The United Nations spaceship Indomitable was the first human vessel to leave their solar system. Taman stood on the bridge watching stars that no human eye had ever seen. His crew was small, but skilled. Commander Ju handled weapons and tactics. She had served in 3 Earth wars before joining the space program. Dr. Wan studied alien life, though they had not found any yet. Lieutenant Bora was the best pilot Earth had ever produced. Engineer Dong Hun kept the ship running with spare parts and clever thinking. They were exploring a nebula when the sensors screamed. Bora pulled up the display. A massive ship had appeared, 10 times larger than the Indomitable. It was covered in organic armor and weapon ports. Behind it, a smaller vessel drifted in space, leaking atmosphere. The smaller ship was broadcasting a distress signal in a language the computers could not understand. Taemin made the decision quickly. They were explorers. If someone needed help, they would help. He ordered Ju to send a peaceful greeting on all frequencies. The response came in perfect English. The ship's computer had learned their language in seconds. The voice was coldened, filled with amusement. It belonged to a Valith commander. The translation made Taman's blood run cold. The Verlith was not interested in talking. It was explaining why the smaller ship deserved to die. The Pyro species had refused to increase their tribute payments. The consortium did not negotiate with those who failed to obey. 50,000 Pyro civilians were on that colony ship. The Valith commander wanted the humans to watch what happened to those who disappointed the consortium. The Indomitable's crew watched in horror as the Valith warship fired. The colony ship exploded insolence. 50,000 lives ended in a moment. The wreckage scattered across space like burning rain. Taemen stood frozen. Jeyu's hands shook over her console. Dr. Wan could not find words. Bora gripped her controls until her knuckles turned white. Donghan stared at the screen, his face blank with shock. The Verleth commander spoke again. Now it was humanity's turn. The consortium had found a new species. Humans would surrender immediately. They would provide their home planet's location. They would become servants of the consortium. This was not a request. This was the natural order of the galaxy. Thestron commanded. The weak obeyed. The bridge was silent. Every person aboard the Indomitable understood what they had just seen. This was not first contact with peaceful neighbors. This was not the beginning of friendship among the stars. They had found something ancient and evil. They had found predators Ho had never known defeat. Taman took a breath. He thought about the 50,000 dead. He thought about Earth. He thought about his children who would grow up as slaves if he gave this creature what it wanted. He opened the communicational. His voice was steady and clear. We didn't come here to kneel. The Verlith commander laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass. The warship's weapons began to charge. On the bridge of the Indomitable, 5 humans prepared to fight against impossible odds. They did not know they were about to change the galaxy forever. The age of humanity had begun. The Valith warship had 10 times more firepower than the Indomitable. Its shields could withstand nuclear weapons. Its armor had survived 1,000 battles. The commander expected this fight to last less than a minute. Humans were small and soft. Their ship looked weak. This would be simple. The commander did not understand what humans were. Humanity had spent 10,000 years fighting itself. Every war, every battle, every conflict had taught them something the consortium never learned. Deception, improvisation, the willingness to do whatever it took to survive. Ji Woo had studied every war in human history. She knew the consortium fought with overwhelming force applied directly. They were predictable. Shu whispered a plan to Tammin. He listened and nodded. It was crazy. It might work. Bora threw the ship into a wild spin as the first weapons fired. Plasma bolts passed through the space where they had been. Donghoon diverted all power to rear shields. The Indomitable shook as hits landed. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Ju launched every missile they had, not at the enemy ship, but at the wreckage of the destroyed colony vessel. The explosions created a cloud of debris between them. The Verlith commander sneered at the pathetic attempt to hide. He ordered his ship forward through the debris field. Sensors showed the human ship drifting. Venting atmosphere, systems failing. It was over. That was exactly what you wanted him to think. The damage was faked. When the Valith warship emerged from the debris cloud, it was close enough to touch, too close for its own weapons to target properly. Every gun on the Indomitable fired at once. Railguns, missiles, lasers, everything. At the same moment, Dong-hin did something insane. He vented the ship's reactor coolant directly at the enemy vessel. Superheated liquid hit the Varel ship's hull and flash froze in the vacuum of space. Ice coated the warship's external sensors and weapon ports. The consortium vessel went blind. The Verlith commander roared in fury. This was impossible. New species always died quickly. They never fought back. They never won. He tried to back away to get distance so his weapons could lock in. But Bora was faster. She kept the Indomitable glued to the warship's side, firing constantly. The Verlith ship's shields failed. Armor cracked. Atmosphere leaked. The commander sent a final transmission to Consortium High Command. Coordinates, images of the human ship. A warning. Then the reactor went critical. The warship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. Bora pulled them away just in time. The Indomitable shields absorbed the blast wave. They drifted in space, surrounded by burning wreckage. Inside the bridge, nobody spoke. They had just killed for the first time. They had destroyed a ship and everyone aboard. It felt wrong. It felt necessary. Dr. Wan broke the silence. His voice shook. They'll come back. That transmission got through. They know where we are now. Tammin stared at the debris field. Somewhere in that destruction were the answers they needed. What was the consortium? How big was their empire? How many ships did they have? He ordered the crew to recover data from the wreckage. They worked quickly, pulling damaged computers from the floating ruins. What they found terrified them. The consortium controlled thousands of star systems. They had millions of ships. They had destroyed species more advanced than humanity without breaking a sweat. The Veralis commander had sent Earth's location in his final transmission. They're in for home. The Indomitable jumped to faster than light speed. Racing back toward Earth, they had 6 weeks before a consortium fleet would arrive. 6 weeks to prepare for war against an empire that had never lost. Earth received Themysage 3 days later. Captain Tammin's report spread across every nation. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session. President Kyung-suk of the UN addressed the world. She was a small woman with iron in her voice. She had survived wars. She had rebuilt nations. She would not let humanity become slaves. They came to our galaxy thinking they would find victims. she said. CC cameras broadcast her words to 8 billion people. They found us instead. The world transformed overnight. Every nation opened their military arsenals. Technology that had been secret was shared freely. Factories that built cars began building warships. The human race had fought itself for thousands of years. Now they would fight together. Admiral Zheng was given command of the United Earth Defense Fleet. He was 60 years old. A veteran of 4 wars and the best strategic mind humanity had. He stood in front of a hologram showing Thessaloral's system. 6 weeks to build a fleet. 6 weeks to create a defense that could stop an empire. General Young Ya worked with military leaders from every nation. Korean tacticians collaborated with American generals, Chinese strategists, Russian commanders, African military experts. They wrote new doctrine. They invented new tactics. They prepared for a battle that would decide if humanity survived. Dr. Seek lead weapon development. His team created missiles that could track targets through faster-than-light jumps. They built railguns that could punch through energy shields. They designed bombs that could superheat atmospheres without destroying planets. In shipyards around the solar system, construction never stopped. Buses in Cape Canaveral, Beijing, Moscow, Lagos, Buenos Aires. 200 warships took shape. They were smaller than consortium vessels. Weaker, but they were crewed by humans who refused to surrender. Admiral Jung watched the ships launch from Earth's orbit. He thought about Captain Tommen's report. One small ship had destroyed a consortium warship through improvisation and courage. If one ship could do that, what could 200 do? The consortium was about to find out. 50 enemy warships were coming to destroy Earth. They thought they were coming to exterminate insects. They were wrong. They were coming to fight humanity. Fleet Commander Vikar had destroyed 30 species. The Morvac reptile was famous across the consortium for his efficiency. He never wasted time. He never showed mercy. When High Command ordered him to exterminate humanity, he calculated the mission would take 4 hours, 50 warships against one primitive world. He had used fewer ships to burn larger civilizations. His fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Sensors immediately showed something unexpected. 200 human warships waited in defensive formation around their planet. Vodkar studied the display. The human vessels were smaller than his ships. Their weapons looked primitive. Their shields were weak. But there were so many of them, he recalculated, 6 hours instead of 4. The outcome would not change. Admiral Jung watched the enemy fleet appear on his screens. 50 massive ships, each one capable of destroying cities. Behind him on Earth, 8 billion people looked up at the sky. They knew what was coming. Children held their parents. Soldiers said goodbye to families. The world waited to see if humanity would survive its first day of galactic war. Jung activated the fleet-wide channel. His voice reached every ship, every crew member. They think we're prey. They think we'll run or surrender. They're wrong. We fought for this planet for thousands of years against each other. Now we fight for it together. Make them remember this day. The battle began with silence. Fakar expected humans to charge forward stupidly. Instead, they held position. He sent a third of his fleet forward to probe their defenses. That was when the asteroid started moving. Captain MSU commanded a squadron of mining ships that had been weaponized. The vessels were old and slow, but they did not need to be fast. They just needed to reach ramming speed. Consortium sensors detected the asteroids too late. Huge rocks accelerated to incredible velocity, slammed into Valith cruisers. Shields flickered and died. Armor crumpled. 3 warships were crippled in seconds. Bother hissed in anger. Clever, but it would not save them. He ordered the fleet to advance in formation. Human weapons opened fire. Missiles struck through space. Railgun rounds moved faster than sound. Laser batteries created webs of light. The consortium shields held easily. The return fire was devastating. Human ships exploded. Bodies floated in the void. The defense line began to crack. That was when the moon opened fire. Colonel Haiwan had spent 6 weeks installing railgun batteries on the dark side of the lunar surface. Faker's fleet had ignored the moon, focusing on Earth. Now weapons hidden in craters fired at their unprotected rear. Morvac's dreadnought suitured under the assault. One exploded, its reactor torn open. 2 more went dark. Systems destroyed. Bother realized his mistake. These humans were not fighting with honor or tradition. They were fighting to win. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space rock was a potential weapon. He ordered his fleet to spread out to avoid concentrated fire. That was exactly what Jung wanted. The human fleet charged forward. Small fighters swarmed around massive warships like angry insects. Commander Sun Ho led a squadron of suicide ships, volunteers who knew they would not return. They flew directly into consortium formations. When enemy point defense destroyed them, their anti-air payloads detonated. 3 Morvac dreadnoughts vanished in balls of white fire. Song Ho's last words were broadcast to the fleet. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone who comes after us. 40,000 people died in those explosions. Human and alien blood mixed in the vacuum. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides burned. The void filled with wreckage. Dr. Suk watched from a command station on Earth. His team had prepared one final weapon. The consortium's Thulkar ships used energy weapons powered by their crystalline bodies. Those weapons were incredibly powerful, but they had a weakness. They were vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. Earth had the strongest magnetic field of any planet in the system. Siak had built generators that could weaponize it. Heg of the Order. Massive electromagnetic pulses erupted from stations hidden on Earth's surface. The magnetic field itself became a weapon. Tulkar ships went dark as their systems overloaded. Unable to fight, they drifted helplessly. Human forces destroyed them one by one. Bora, now commanding a Wingoff fighters, led an attack on a GTH flagship. The massive vessel was covered in armor too thick for normal weapons to penetrate. She flew straight toward the hangar bay, her squadron following. Point defense lasers cut down half her fighters. She did not slow down. They entered the hangar at full speed, flying between confused consortium forces. Bora armed her anti-air bomb and ejected. Her fighter continued forward, piloted by computer. It detonated deep inside a flagship. The explosion tore through the ship from inside. Secondary detonations followed. The flagship broke apart. Bora's escape pod was recovered 3 hours later. She had saved 800 human lives by destroying that ship. She had lost 30 pilots doing it. Bother could not understand what was happening. His fleet was dying. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They sacrificed their own ships to destroy his. They used their own planet's magnetic field as a weapon. They turned space rocks into missiles. They did not fight the way civilized species fought. They fought like cornered animals. His calculations had been wrong. He tried to retreat to regroup and plan a new attack. But Admiral Jung had predicted this. The reserve fleet, hidden behind Earth's moon, emerged and cut off the consortium's escape route. They were trapped. The battle lasted another 6 hours. When it ended, only 3 consortium ships escaped. 47 were destroyed or captured. Viega was not among the survivors. His flagship had been torn apart by concentrated railgun fire. The Morvac commander, who had never lost a battle, died among the wreckage of his pride. Earth had won, but the cost was terrible. 87 human ships were destroyed. 40,000 people were dead. Families mourned. Cities held funerals. The world celebrated and wept at the same time. President Kyung Suk addressed humanity again. Her eyes were red from crying. She'd lost her Ounson in the battle. We won today because we fought together. Every nation, every person. We proved that humanity will not kneel. But this is not over. The consortium is vast. They will come again. We must be ready. In the wreckage floating around Earth, salvage crews found something important. Consortium computers filled with data. Star charts, fleet positions, technologispa checks. Humanity began to understand the empire they were fighting, and they began to plan their counterattack. The Consortium High Command met for the first time in 500 years. 5 species had conquered the galaxy without defeat, now faced an impossible truth. A species they had never heard of had destroyed their fleet. Overlord Craven of the Valith slammed his massive claws on the council table. He demanded immediate retaliation. 500 warships to burn the human world until nothing remained. Grand Strategos Malvix of Thermorvax was more cautious. He had studied the battle recordings from the 3 ships that escaped. These humans fall differently. They use tactics the Consortium had never seen. Deception. Sacrifice. Weapons that turned their own environment into a battlefield. He suggested studying them first, learning their methods. Craven called him a coward. The council voted. 500 ships would be assembled. Humanity would be exterminated. That would take time. Warships had to be pulled from across the empire. Crews had to be gathered. Supplies had to be loaded. The Consortium estimated 3 months before Thefleet was ready. They believed humans would spend that time cowering on their world, preparing to die. They were wrong. President Kyung-suk and Admiral Jung made a decision that shocked the military command. They would not wait for the second invasion. They would attack first. General Young-jae called it madness. Earth had just survived by the smallest margin. Their fleet was damaged. They had no idea how large the Consortium truly was. Attacking would be suicide. Jung disagreed. We know where Theer mining colonies are. We know their supply routes. The data we captured tells us everything. If we wait, they'll gather strength. If we attack now, we catch them off balance. We take the fight to them before they bring it back to us. Young-jae studied the star charts. She saw 3 mining colonies within striking distance. Each one fed her sources to Consortium war factories. Each one was lightly defended because the Consortium had never faced raids before. She began to smile. We don't attack to conquer. We attack to liberate. Every world we free is one less feeding their war machine. The plan was called Operation Typhoon. 3 strike teams would hit 3 different colonies simultaneously. The Consortium would have to split their forces to respond. Humanity would prove they were not trapped on Earth. They could strike anywhere. Commander Jung led Nova Team to Nexus, Steven of Relith, mining world. His 20 ships dropped. Out of faster-than-light travel in orbit above a planet covered in industrial complexes, the defense force was small. Only 5 warships. They died in the first 5 minutes. De Jong ordered his Marines to surface. What they found made them sick. Millions of enslaved aliens working in mines, barely fed, beaten if they slowed down. Children as young as 5 carried her in baskets. The Verlith overseers treated them like animals. The Marines killed every Verlith on the planet. Not in battle, in execution. They did not feel guilty. Captain Taman, now advising the operation, had to order them to stop. We're not here for revenge. We're here to free these people. The slaves did not understand at first. Freedom was not a concept they remembered. But when the chains came off, when food and medical care arrived, they began to understand. Humans were different. Captain Swa led Storm Team to Krell 4, a Morvax research outpost. Her 15 ships engaged the defense fleet in a brutal fight. The Morvax were better prepared than the Valith. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, shields supporting each other. Swa used a tactic from Earth's naval history. She feinted an attack from one direction, drew the enemy fleet out of position, then struck from another angle with her fastest ships. The Morvax could calculate every move she made, but they could not predict what she would do because Shek kept changing her plan. Chaos beat calculation. The outpost fell. On the surface, they found laboratories where the Morvax experimented on captured aliens. Testing weapons, measuring pain thresholds, researching how different species died. Dr. Wan documented the galaxy needed to see what the Consortium truly was. This was not an empire. This was a machine that processed living beings into resources. Colonel Wu Jin commanded Thunder Team at Breer 9, a Grimth refinery, the Grimth fought with pure savagery. Their ships rammed human vessels using mass as a weapon. Wu Jin adapted. He lured the fleet into the refinery's orbital platform. When they were surrounded by their own structures, he detonated Theffel storage tanks. The explosions destroyed half the enemy fleet. The rest surrendered when they realized they were fighting someone as ruthless as themselves. On the refinery, they found something unexpected. Not all the workers were slaves. Some were Grimth civilians who hated the military as much as the aliens did. The consortium's own people suffered under their rule. Wu Jin offered them a choice: stay and be abandoned, or join humanity's fight. 3,000 Gath chose to join. The first consortium citizens to defect. News off the raid spread across the galaxy faster than light. The consortium scrambled to respond, sending fleets to protect their remaining colonies. But they were too late. Humanity had already struck and vanished. More importantly, the slaves humanity freed began to talk. They told others about the humans who broke their chains, about the warriors who chose mercy over massacre, about a species that fought the consortium and won. Dr. Wan made contact with the Pyro, the species whose colony ship had been destroyed in the first encounter. They had been vassals of the consortium for 800 years. They remembered freedom. They wanted it back. In exchange for human protection, they offered their knowledge. The Pyro were master engineers and ship designers. Within weeks, human vessels began incorporating Pyro technology. Shields became stronger. Engines became faster. Ambassador In Suk, a Korean diplomat Hohad, negotiated peace treaties on Earth, now negotiated with aliens. She spoke to the freed species. She offered them a choice: join humanity's coalition and fight for freedom, or stay neutral and be left alone. She promised that humans would never force anyone to fight. 15 species joined in the first month. Each brought something valuable. The Noeth were computer experts who could hack consortium systems. The Bracken knew every asteroid field and hidden route in the galaxy. The Euler had medical technology that could heal injuries humans thought were fatal. The Free Worlds Alliance was born. Humanity at its center, not as rulers, but as liberators. Every species had equal voice. Every world contributed what it could. For the first time in 3,000 years, the weak were banding together against the strong. The consortium noticed. Overlord Cravan demanded an immediate attack on Earth. Malvix counseled patience. They argued for weeks. During that time, humanity freed 8 more colonies. The Alliance grew to 30 species. Supply lines across the consortium began to collapse as workers rebelled. Admiral J's son studied reports from intelligence. The consortium was fracturing. Not all apex species agreed on how to respond. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted total war. He saw an opportunity. If they could drive a wedge between the consortium leaders, the Empire might tear itself apart. He proposed Operation Hammer. One massive strike at Vorkath Prime, the Verlith homeworld, the symbolic center of consortium power. If humanity could take the Verlith capital, every other species would question their own government. The Alliance would prove the impossible was possible. The plan was insane. Vorkath Prime was defended by 300 warships. The human fleet had 400 ships now, including allied vessels. But many were damaged from previous fights. They would be outnumbered in firepower even if they had more ships. General Tae Hyun, who would lead ground forces, calculated 60% casualties minimum. President Kyung-suk approved the mission anyway. We didn't start this war for safety. We started it for freedom. If we win at Vorkath, the galaxy changes. If we lose, at least we tried. The fleet began to gather. 400 ships from 20 worlds. Humans, Pyro, Nolith, Grimth defectors, and dozens of other species. They were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for the idea that strength should protect the weak, instead of crushing them. Vorkath Prime waited, unaware of the storm approaching, 6 months after humanity's first victory. The galaxy looked different. 15 consortium colonies had been liberated. Each world told the same story. Slaves in chains, forced to work until they died, feeding an empire built on suffering. And each world saw the same thing when humans arrived. Not new masters, but liberators who broke chains and offered choice. Ambassador Insuk worked 18-hour days coordinating Thief-Free Worlds Alliance. Her office on the lunar station had become the diplomatic center of a revolution. Representatives from 30 species met there, each bringing unique gifts to the coalition. The Pural engineers redesigned human ships, making them faster and more efficient. Insequatched as a Korean destroyer was retrofitted with pyroshield generators. The technology was centuries ahead, Ophiman designs. Captain Minsu, who had survived the Battle of Earth, commanded the upgraded vessel. He reported shields 3 times stronger than before. The Nolith Weirsmal amphibious beings who lived in water suits went on dry worlds, but their minds were sharp as knives. They could hack Consortium computer systems faster than the Consortium could defend them. A Nolith named Ralix worked with engineer Donghen, teaching him tricks that seemed like magic. Within weeks, human forces could disable Consortium ships without firing a shot. They simply turned off the enemy's weapons remotely. The Bracken were miners who had mapped every asteroid and hidden path in Consortium space. Their knowledge became humanity's advantage. Admiral Jae-sung could move fleets through routes the Consortium did not know existed. His hips appeared and vanished like ghosts. The Euler provided medical technology that saved thousands of lives. Injurious that would have killed human soldiers were healed in days. Dr. Wan worked with Euler doctors amazed at their skill. But the alliance was more than shared technology. It was shared purpose. Every species had suffered under the Consortium. Everyone had lost family to the Empire's cruelty. Now they fought together, not because humans ordered it, but because Athi chose it. The Consortium watched this growing coalition with confusion and fear. Their empire had always worked one way. The strong ruled, the weak obeyed. No one had ever united against them before. The idea that species would help each other without being forced was alien to them. Then something happened that shook the Consortium to its core. Radiant Sovereign Loser, leader of the Thulkar, sent a secret message to President Kyung-suk, the Tulkar weary energy beings who lived in crystal bodies. They had joined the Consortium 3,000 years ago for protection, not conquest. They were tired of war. Loser's message was simple. The Thulkar wanted neutrality. They would not fight humanity if humanity did not attack them. Kunguk brought the message to the Alliance Council. Ambassador Insuk argued they should accept. If we can divide the Consortium, we can win without destroying them. That's a better future than one built on revenge. The Council voted to accept Thulkar neutrality. It was the first crack in the Consortium's unity. Overlord Kravinoff, the Valith, discovered the secret communication. He was furious. Betrayal was punishable by death and Consortium law. The Valith military attacked the Thulkar homeworld without warning. They executed Loser and imprisoned the entire Thulkar leadership. The crystalline species who had served the Consortium for millennia became prisoners in their own empire. The brutality backfired. 3 more vassal species immediately contacted humanity asking for protection. They had seen what happened to the Thulkar for merely asking for peace. If the Consortium would do that to their own allies, what would they do to everyone else? The alliance grew to 40 species within weeks. Admiral Jung-soth, opportunity. The Consortium was distracted by internal problems. Their forces were spread thin, trying to prevent more colonies from rebelling. This was the perfect moment to strike at their heart. He proposed Operation Hammer, an assault on Vorkuth Prime, Thieverleth homeworld. General Young Jaw studied the intelligence. Vorkuth Primuus, the most heavily defended planet in the Consortium. 300 warships protected it. The planet's surface had weapon batteries that could destroy attacking fleets. The Valith military command operated from there. Taking it would be nearly impossible. She loved the idea. General Tae-hyung would lead the ground assault. He was a veteran of Earth's unification wars, known for winning battles everyone thought were lost. He requested 50,000 Marines from across the Alliance. Humans would form the core, but soldiers from 20 species would join them. Bora, now awing commander, would lead fighter support. Captain Young-yi commanded the orbital bombardment fleet. Engineer Dong Haeon had developed new weapons for the assault. Nova bombs that could superheat a planet's atmosphere without destroying it. The heat would disable military equipment and force surrender, but would not kill civilians. It was a weapon designed to minimize death even in total war. Some military leaders questioned why they should show mercy to the Verlith after what they had done. Dong Haeon's answer was simple. Because we're better than them. If we become like them to beat them, what's the point? The fleet gathered at a hidden location in neutral space. 400 ships from 30 worlds, the largest military force ever assembled against the consortium. Humans formed half the fleet. The rest were allies who had costened to fight. This was not conquest. This was liberation. Aboard his flagship, Admiral Jung addressed the fleet. His words were translated into 40 languages. We're about to attack the homeworld of the species that has terrorized this galaxy for 3,000 years. Some of you will not come home. Some of you will die far from the people you love. But you fight for something worth dying for. You fight so that no species ever has to kneel again. You fight for freedom. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. Destination Vorkath Prime. The Valith homeworld had never been attacked in recorded history. It was about to fall. On Vorkath Prime, Overlord Kraven raised reports of a massive fleet approaching. He laughed. Let them come. His 300 warships had never been defeated. The planetary defenses had never been breached. Earth had won one battle through luck. That luck was about to run out. He ordered every ship to defensive positions around the planet. He activated every weapon battery on the surface. He sent a message to the Consortium High Command. The humans were delivering themselves to their doom. The Alliance fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Theverkath's system. Sensors immediately detected the massive defense force. 300 warships. Thousands of defensive platforms, planetary shields covering the entire world. It was the most heavily defended target in the galaxy. Admiral Jung studied the displays. He'd been planning this battle for months. He knew the Verlith would concentrate their forces around Theplanet. They always fought the same way. Overwhelming strength in a single location. He smiled. They haven't learned anything. Execute Plan Cheongsam. The fleet split into 3 groups. The battle for Vorkath Prime began. The largest space battle in galactic history had started, and humanity intended to win it. The Battle of Vorkath Prime lasted 48 hours. It was the largest space battle in recorded history. 400 Alliance ships against 300 Consortium vessels defending their homeworld. Morathan, 500,000 beings fought in the void between planets. Many would not survive. Admiral Jung divided his fleet into 3 attack groups. Alpha Wing, commanded by Captain Ginho, would attack directly. The Valith would see them coming and mash their forces to meet the threat. It was a suicide mission. Ginho knew it. His crews knew it. They went in a way. 100 ships charged forward into a wall of enemy fire. The Veralith commander took the bait, pulling his forces forward to crush the human attack. Beta Wing, led by Commander Ju, waited hidden in the comet belt at the system's edge. The plan required perfect timing. She watched her displays as Alpha Wing died. Jinho's ship exploded. 50 more ships followed. Human and allied crews screamed and burned. Ju wanted to help them. Instead, she waited. War demanded terrible choices. When the Verlith fleet had committed fully to destroying Alpha Wing, Ju gave theater. B-towing emerged from hiding behind the enemy. 100 fresh ships struck Verlith rear. The Consortium forces were caught between 2 fires. Overlord Kraven roared orders, trying to split his attention between both threats. His perfect defensive formation shattered. Gamma, the reserve force commanded by Colonel Yan Wu, stayed back. She waited for the critical moment. The battle became chaos. Ships exploded on both sides. The void filled with debris and bodies. Alliance casualties mounted. They were winning, but the cost was terrible. Ju saw her chance. The consortium flagship Kravan's personal dreadnought was isolated from its support vessels. She made a decision that would haunt her forever. She ordered a boarding assault. 50 Marines and assault pods launched toward the flagship. Frilith Point defense killed half of them before they reached the hull. The survivors breached and fought their way inside. Gu led the assault personally. She was 43 years old, a grandmother, and she fought through corridors filled with 9FT tall insect warriors. Her team used human tactics, small unit coordination, cover fire, grenades, and enclosed spaces. Things the Varith had never faced. They carved through the ship, heading for the bridge. 2,000 Varith defended their commander. 50 humans and allied Marines fought them all. When G reached the bridge, only 12 Marines were still alive. She was wounded, her armor cracked, bleeding from 3 places. But she had done it. She accessed the ship's communication system and broadcast Kravan's exact position to every Alliance ship. The Overlord's location was now known to everyone. Every human weapon in range targeted the flagship. Hundreds of missiles, dozens of railgun rounds, energy weapons from 3 different species. The dreadnought shields collapsed under impossible concentrate fire. Ju and her surviving Marines evacuated in stolen Varith, escaped pod seconds before the ship exploded. Overlord Kravan died in the blast. The Verlith leader who had ruled through fear for 200 years was gone. The Verlith fleet wavered. Their commander was dead. Their flagship destroyed. First time in their history, they did not know what to do. Colonel Yan Wu saw the hesitation and committed Gamma. The fresh ships tore through the disorganized consortium lines. General Tai Hong watched the space battle from his assault ship. When Zheng gave the signal, he led 50,000 Marines toward Verkath Prime surface. The landing was brutal. Verlith's ground forces met them with fanatical resistance, but Taeyong had planned for this. His troops spread out, using human infantry tactics against an enemy that only knew frontal assault. On the surface, they discovered something that made the battle suddenly more complicated. Billions of slaves from hundreds of species worked in factories across the planet. The Verlith had built their entire empire on the backs of conquered peoples. These people were trapped between the battle lines. Captain Yunja commanded the orbital bombardment fleet. Her orders were clear. Use Nova bombs on military targets. The weapons would superheat the atmosphere, destroying equipment and forcing surrender without killing the slaves. But she hesitated. Billions of innocent people were down there. If she miscalculated, if Thuipans worked differently than expected, she would murder them all. Dr. Siok, monitoring from the fleet, sent her a message. The weapons will work. Trust the science. Trust yourself. Youngji made the hardest decision of her life. She gave the order. Nova bombs fell toward 12 military command centers. The weapons detonated in atmosphere. Heat rolled across the planet in controlled waves. Fleet military equipment melted. Soldiers collapsed from heat exhaustion, but the slaves in their factories with cooling systems served. The Veleth ground forces realized they had lost. Their equipment was destroyed. Their fleet was dying in orbit. Their commander was dead. For 3,000 years, they had never surrendered. The concept did not exist in their language. But they were learning new concepts today. General Tae Hung broadcast an offer on all frequencies, in every language spoken on Vorakath Prime. Surrender and live, free all slaves, or continue fighting and die. The choice was theirs. The Valeth military commanders gathered in their ruined headquarters. They debated. Some wanted to fight to the last. Others saw reality. They had lost. If they continued, the humans would destroy them. If they surrendered, at least their species would survive. After 2 hours of argument, they made their decision. The message went out. The Valeth military surrendered. Weapons went silent. Ships stopped firing. The battle ended. Alliance forces moved across the planet, liberating 12 billion enslaved beings. Dr. Wan coordinated the largest humanitarian operation in history. Euler medics treated the sick. Human engineers restored water and power systems that the Valeth had let decay. Food from Alliance worlds poured in. The freed slaves did not understand at first. Some had been born in chains. They had never known freedom. When the shackles came off, many just stood there waiting for new orders. It took time for them to realize the truth. No one would force them to work anymore. No one would beat them. They were free. The cost of victory was devastating. 140 Alliance ships destroyed. Liu Wen dead. Captain Jinho, who led the first wave, was among them. So were thousands of others who gave everything for a galaxy they had never seen. Admiral Zheng walked through the ruins of the Verlath Command Center. He found prisoner accords, lists of every species the Vilith had enslaved, worlds they had destroyed, civilizations they had exterminated. The numbers were too large to process. Hundreds of billions had died building this empire. President Kung arrived with the second wave of ships. She stood on Vorkoth Prime and addressed the freed people. Her words were translated into 300 languages. You are not slaves anymore. You are not subjects. You are free. Build whatever future you want. We will help you, but will not rule you. Freedom is not given. It is taken. You took yours today. News of Vorkoth Prime's fall spread across the galaxy at light speed. The consortium's strongest species had been defeated on their own homeworld. The empire that had ruled for 3 millennia was crumbling. On 1,000 worlds, slaves looked at their chain sand, wondered if they could break them too. The remaining consortium species, the Morvac, Grimoth, and Sylvani, held emergency meetings. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted revenge. All Aftem knew their world had changed forever. Humanity had proven the impossible. The strong could be defeated, and the weak united could become stronger than anyone imagined. The fall of Vorkoth Prime shook the galaxy. For 3,000 years, the consortium had been unbeatable. Now, their strongest species had surrendered on their own homeworld. The remaining consortium leaders knew they were losing, but they were not ready to give up. They still had weapons. They still had fear. They would use both. Grand Strategos Malvix of the Morvac had watched humanity's victories with growing concern. He understood something the other consortium leaders did not. Humans could not be beaten in direct combat. They were too creative, too adaptable, too willing to sacrifice. But there were other ways to fight. He launched a propaganda campaign across the galaxy. The message was simple and terrifying. Humans were dangerous conquerors who would enslave everyone. Just like the consortium had, fear was a powerful weapon. Some species believed the lies. They had been slaves for so long they could not imagine freedom without chains. Better to stay with the consortium they knew than risk trusting humans they did not. The Free Worlds Alliance growth slowed. Some species who had been considering joining chose neutrality instead. Ambassador Insuk addressed the problem directly. She created the Restoration Corps led by Colonel Song-Woo. Their mission was not to fight, but to rebuild. Every world the Alliance freed received help. Engineers fixed infrastructure. Doctors treated the sick. Teachers opened schools. The U-work was slow and unglamorous, but it proved what humanity was, not conquerors. Liberators, on Vorkoth Prime, the transformation was visible. The Verlath had kept the planet as a military fortress surrounded by factory prisons. Now those prisons became homes. Factories became workshops where people worked for themselves. Children who had carried or in chains now played in parks, built on the ruins of weapons platforms. The Valathemsevs struggled with their new reality. They had defined themselves through conquest. Without that, who weareth thee? Some could not adapt. They fled to the remaining consortium worlds, but others stayed. They began to learn Marisi, starting with accepting it for themselves. While humanity rebuilt, Malvix prepared his final gambit. He gathered 200 Morvox stealth ships and aimed them at Earth. His strategy was brilliant and ruthless. Kill humanity's leaders, and the Alliance would collapse. Species would return to the consortium out of fear. If he could not beat humans militarily, he would decapitate their civilization. The stealth fleet slipped past human defenses. Morvac's technology was ancient and sophisticated. They reached Earth's orbit undetected. Malvix sent his demand. President Kungok would surrender, or Earth would burn. Kyongakeft evacuation. She stood in the UN headquarters and activated protocols Earth had prepared for this exact scenario. Dr. Seek's years of defensive work revealed itself. Every satellite, every lunar base, every hidden platform built into Earth's infrastructure opened fire at once. The planet was not just defended. It was a weapon. 200 Morvac ships faced firepower equivalent to 500 human warships. But they were alone deep in enemy territory without support. Captain Hun Woo commanded Earth's home defense fleet. 50 old warships, crewed by veterans and reservists. He knew his hips were outmatched. He did not care. This was his home. His family was down there. He would die before he let them be harmed. The battle raged for 36 hours. Morvac ships were destroyed by weapons they never saw coming. Railguns hidden in orbital debris. Missile batteries disguised as communication stall. Even the moon itself fired weapons from hidden installations. But the Morvacs were skilled warriors. They adapted quickly. They began destroying Earth's defenses systematically. Commander Jisoo, Boris Iyenger's sister, piloted an experimental fighter called Seraphim. It had prototype engines that could make micro-jumps through space. She appeared behind enemy ships, fired, and vanished before they could respond. She destroyed 12 Morvax vessels personally, but there were too many. The defense was failing. Malvix's flagship closed on Earth. He prepared to broadcast his victory. Then every screen in his ship showed the same thing. Admiral Jaezong's face. The admiral was still weeks away with the main fleet. But he sent a message that reached Earth in real time. Hold, we're coming. Captain Hunhua knew they wouldn't arrive in time. The Morvac would destroy Earth's defenses before help came. He made his choice. He ordered every reserve ship to target the Morvac flagship. They would not survive the attack. He knew it. His crew knew it. They did it anyway. 50 ships charged the flagship in a final assault. Morvac's weapons tore them apart, but they kept coming. Yanwu's ship, the last one still flying, rammed the flagship directly. The impact breached both vessels. Atmosphere vented, fires erupted. Malvix tried to evacuate, but the damage was too severe. The flagship broke apart. The Grand Stratagos, who had destroyed 30 species, died in the fire of human determination. Without their commander, the Morvac fleet faltered. Earth's surviving defenses destroyed them one by one. When the battle ended, only 15 Morvac ships escaped. Earth had held, but the cost was terrible. 30,000 defenders were dead. Captain Hyunwoo was among them. His sacrifice had saved 8 billion people. The Morvac's defeat broke the consortium. With the Valith conquered and the Morvacs crushed, only the GTH and Sylvani remained. Both species fractured. Some factions wanted peace. Others wanted revenge. Civil war erupted within their territories. The empire that had ruled the galaxy tore itself apart from inside. Across consortium space, slaves rose up. They had seen the Valith fall. They had seen the Morvacs die. They knew freedom was possible. On 1,000 worlds, chains broke. Some rebellions succeeded, some failed. But the idea could not be stopped. Strength alone did not determine worth. The strong should protect the weak, not crush them. 1 year after Earth's desperate defense, the Galactic Consortium officially dissolved. The remaining species did not surrender. They simply stopped calling themselves an empire. Some joined the Free Worlds Alliance. Others stayed independent. A few hardliners continued fighting guerrilla wars, but they were hunted down by their own people. Tired of endless conflict, the Grimth War chieftain Grommel challenged Admiral Jungto, single combat. Not for conquest, but for honor. Grommel believed strength should be proven in battle. Jung accepted, not because he wanted to fight, but because he wanted to teach a lesson. In an arena, watched be billions across the galaxy, the Grimth chieftain faced the human admiral. Grommel was 10 trillion tall, covered in muscle and natural armor. Yang was an old man who had spent his life studying war. The Grimth charged. Yan moved aside. Grommel struck with devastating force. Jung deflected. For an hour, the battle continued. The GTH warrior became frustrated. His enemy would not stand still, would not fight like warriors should. Finally, Grimmel exhausted himself. He stood, breathing hard, confused. Jung had not heard him, had just avoided every attack. The admiral spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "We could have exterminated you. We chose mercy instead. That's the difference between us. Strength is not about crushing others. It's about protecting them. You want to prove your strength? Protect those who cannot protect themselves." Grommel understood. He knelt before Yang, not in submission, but in respect. The Grimhoth became the Alliance's fiercest defenders, dedicating their strength to guarding the weak rather than oppressing them. The Galactic Commonwealth was established to replace the Consortium. 127 species joined as equals. No one ruled. Everyone contributed. Earth became the neutral capital, chosen because humans had proven trustworthy. President Kyung-suk was elected first chancellor by unanimous vote. The 5 apex species still existed, but their roles had changed. The Valith, once conquerors, became guardians. They used here military skill to protect shipping lanes and defend peaceful worlds. The Thulkar, freed from imprisonment, became mediators and peacekeepers. Their energy nature let them survive environments others could not. The Morvox server Vorse integrated as strategic advisors. Their calculating minds used for planning defense instead of conquest. The Grimmith formed the Commonwealth Defense Force. The Salvani led exploration teams, finding and peacefully contacting new species. On Vorkath Prime, the Commonwealth erected a monument. It listed every being who had died in the wars. Human, alien, consortium, alliance, soldier, civilian, all were remembered. The inscription read, "They assaulted the galaxy bellying strength meant conquest. Humanity taught them strength means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We remember all who fell, so that none would kneel again." 10 years later, Captain Tamman commanded the exploration vessel New Dawn. Commander Ju served as his first officer. Dr. Wan cataloged thousands of species in the Commonwealth database. Bora trained pilots from 100 worlds. Engineer Dong Hun designed ships that combined technology from 50 civilizations. Ambassador and Suk negotiated peaceful first contacts with newly discovered species. The galaxy had changed. War still happened. Species still disagreed. But the idea that the strong should crush the weak was dying. Children from 100 worlds learned a new history. About the species that refused to kneel. About the warriors who offered mercy instead of massacre. About the day humanity showed the galaxy a different path. The Consortium had assaulted authors for 3,000 years,